So let's start with the second round of two residents talking about their experiences, about their projects, and I'm very happy to start with Otto Rummukainen. Otto is a multidisciplinary artist who works in the field of art and design. He holds a master's degree in fashion, clothing and textile from Aalto University, and the ones of you who know Aalto University, they can appreciate that. So maybe we will come back to this university as well. So he worked also with ceramic and glass in his work, not just textile, but also these two very old techniques of glass blowing, of ceramics. But now here at TaDA residency, of course, he is diving into textile, and the way he does that and what he's all about, I think you will be talking about in a minute. So his work is also not just the one, the projects he's doing now at the residency, but his work is also exploring themes of femininity and masculinity. And one way to explore such topics is through an alter ego named Yossu, if I'm spelling it correctly.
Exactly.
Yossu. So a fictional non-binary character who is presented in many of his work, and Yossu is also coming to the stage here. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Meret, and thank you for having me. So here's a picture of me. So I'm Otto Rummukainen, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and yes, exactly as Meret says, my background is in ceramic and glass. I graduated from Aalto University 2020. And I work now with media like weaving and drawing, mostly. And in this project, I will first talk about beginning, my background, process, and results. So first of all, I want to introduce you my I Want to Entertain project that I made in 2019, where I explored how does the artwork become before the artist, and also artist identity and stardom. And I made 7 woven shock arts from it. And then I also, this summer, I published a comic art book, actually about Yossu, and it's a nickname for Johanna in Finnish. And Yossu has also her own Instagram account here. Please go and follow. But yeah, now I go to TaDA project. In the beginning, I always start my process with drawing. I think when I draw, and I draw when I think. It's always like I have to get everything out of my mind. I just have to do and push it through. And yeah, it's like I wanted to in the process do something with drawing, and also when I published my comic book about Yossu, so I wanted to also work with Yossu more. Then also the other thing that I with the process do is to experiment with different materials. I got these foils from Lopera and the fabrics from Scholler, and I just started to play around with them, do these different appliques and compasses. I wanted to do something tangible. It's always really important that I go through every possible option in my work, and they are also seen in my intermezzo there, where I come later. Yeah, but after the beginning, I decided, okay, I've worked with woven shock art, and I want to weave more of them, so I decided I want to collaborate with Tiska and experiment with the shock art loom, and I set my goal to weave a tapestry comic. I want to also think how to transfer drawing and the story on a woven piece. So yeah, and so I contacted with Tiska, and we had a good conversation with Claudia, and my goals are in the slide because I wanted to experiment, especially with the right bindings, and find the right colorways for my project. I thought a little while, then I drew my first strip. It's also in German here. It's about Justus searching for inspiration. I can read it through here. Like, Justus hat liberal nach Inspiration gesucht, nur nicht in Justus Kopf. Justus weiß nicht, woher anzufangen. Und vielleicht finde ich sie, zweifelt Justus, ich habe keine Lust mehr auf dir zu suchen. Yeah, I actually changed that. This is a little bad German, but anywho. But yeah, I drew this strip, and then I started to experiment. It's like weaving. It took lots of different trials and errors. It takes a lot of time. For example, I can actually pass you around a couple of my samples here. Good, Martina, Marius. Thank you. Yeah, for example, in that piece, I designed printing, and with that, like you'll see like how different results they can see. For example, one weft can change everything. For example, in this part, you'll see it, and actually one of the pieces also had to be woven backwards, so it's also really hard to see like how it goes before you cut it out of the loom. Also, I think one of the really big parts, like in the process, also thinking in the process, like having these breaks and see like how the colors match and write notes what I want and do not want in the fabric. And so here I'm going that through and also processing what I've like really like done here. Now to go to the results, so I created four woven chapkas. Here's the first one, it's called Jossu on the Phone. It actually was woven after the other three pieces, and it was absolutely the easiest one to weave because, I don't know, it's sometimes you need to go through like a big process before you can really do when something becomes easier. I can actually pass this also around. Like, could you please? Yeah, please. And you can also show. Like, can you? Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, it's also like you can really see here, here's the drawing, here's the loom, and here's how it turned out. And also the bigger pieces here, for example, this, the nickname for this was Das Loch, like what we call, because there's like a hole in it. And with this, you cannot really see it here, but it's really a transparent, a really heavy fabric, because I wanted to create this sort of transparency that you can see through the yarns and everything what's inside the fabric and how heavy it is. Like you feel like it's like almost like a blanket. And I think the weight of the blanket is really something, because everybody has like some sort of a memory of their like first textiles or like a first blanket or anything. So I wanted to create that sort of a feeling in it. And in the other, I was more like doing like in the bindings, I wanted this really stiff twill-based structure, and with like different other structures. It's like actually the structures are really traditional here, like when it comes to like weaving somehow. And also I changed the text, now it's a little better German too. Yeah, like for example, yeah, there's like a waffle structure too, and so here they are all together. And I didn't actually talk a lot about this, but here I concentrated more in the colorway. And I think it was like actually the first one what I did too. I wanted to like play with the chenille, and I also wanted to print on this, but I forgot that chenille burns quite easily, so well, our studio smells sometimes a little bad because of that, but well, it's about the experimenting too. Yeah, but like all together, all in all, like I'm really happy about the results and how I mentioned how they like went, and yeah. Thank you so much. Like, I'm really happy, and I want to create heavy textile piece with interesting structures, and I think I made it, and tell a story, because I think every textile and woven piece tells a story of its own. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much for introducing us to Jossu. Just for a start, who is Jossu exactly? I mean, how did you get to learn Jossu? Where did that come from?
It actually came from my bachelor work in 2017. Actually, they've been around in my master thesis. I mean, I was like, I don't actually, somehow it just like came and we like...
Got along good.
Yeah, exactly, I would say that.
Okay, just you just mentioned something which is, in my point of view, very touching. You said we all have memories of textiles, going back to the childhood, like having a blanket, or even when you were smaller, having like something comforting, like a small tissue. Is this also something you want to transport with your work? So this more or less this memory aspect, or this very personal aspect of textiles?
Definitely. I think textiles are really sentimental, reminiscent, like for everyone. Even though we don't think it like daily, but I think everyone will. Like as I said, like everybody remembers their first plush toy, or everybody has this sort of like a certain memory. And I think for me, it's a really personal and big part in my working with textiles.
But at the same time, you also say that you want to leave open the interpretation of your work. Like anybody can see something which is appealing to oneself in your work. So. Is there a tension in between this? Well, we all feel sentimental about textiles, and at the same time you want to open up the interpretation of your work. How do you deal with this kind of tension? Is it the tension, or am I wrong?
I wouldn't say it's not detention. Tension. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's tension. I think everybody has like their own memories and their different ways of interpretation of. Different things. I think it's more like a blessing that people can think like in different ways too.
Yeah. So if I look at your drawings, or at the textiles you made, starting from your drawings, I kind of feel sympathetic with Jossu, I have to say. So in that respect, I can relate to her or to his or to this person in a very direct way. So this in fact, I have my own interpretation maybe, but I also feel like this is something about memories, about emotions in textile. At the same time, we just touched a little bit in the talk with Victoria. So this, in fact, binary grounding of textile, of this, how do you feel like that? I mean, weaving textiles is kind of, I see the stitch or I don't see the stitch. There's nothing in between. It's kind of a binary technique in a way. Or how do you see that?
Yeah, it's like the first computer. It's the first computer. There's like a 1 and 0. Like
the Jacquard techniques. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how come you chosen Jacquard technique?
I think Jacquard is more like a canvas there where I paint. Like my wefts are my colors, and yeah, I chose it because then you can do really big structures, and you can really experiment with it. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, it's also experiencing the experiment, maybe.
Exactly.
So you showed us a little bit your process, and we stand here in front of quite an interesting or two interesting presentations of the process. Could you lead us a little bit more through this process?
Well, actually, this is my internet, so creating a process. I can talk about it maybe a little later, but yeah, it's about about process, like what I've done with the woven and thinking. But I can come back to that later.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to keep that short. So. How come you were also experimenting with glass and ceramics? What brought you to these other two, I mentioned it, very old traditional techniques?
Well, actually weaving was a little like zufall for me. But like I started with ceramics and glass, and I think somehow I was 20 years old back then when I started, but I think it was something that tangible, and I really liked to experience with that material too. And also I think like what I've like taken from ceramics and glass to like textile is this, because you never know what comes from the kiln. You never know, and I also like to keep it that way. That I sometimes don't know what I'm doing, like with everything, and I think it's really like you cannot like learn. I think if you don't like something, that you have to go deeper. And
exactly. So that's your artistic strategy in a way to get all these miracles in a way. How was it working together with the people from the industry? Because they tend to know everything and they know how the process is working. Was there any conflict in between?
Well, I've actually worked beforehand, like with industrial weaving, for example. Like we had like a project with Otto in Lapuan Kankurit in Lapua. It's a weaving mill, and it was like for me like maybe a little easier, but I think we got along really well. Like Disco was amazing. It was like it was a really good collaboration, and also with the other companies, because I didn't really now speak about the other companies what I made, but they're more like in the beginning, but like this I went to end. So yeah, like a little bit, or start, yeah.
So I guess you already know quite a lot about jacquard techniques. Will you proceed with this technique, although maybe you will not be so much surprised one day because you know the technique so well?
I think I continue with jacquard still. I think I want to go now like maybe a little more even like to a dubby loom or shaft loom, like even more so.
Okay.
Yeah, like because it's with jacquard is always something. You have to have the facilities, and most of the facilities are industrial, so it's yeah.
Okay, so I see the point. So if you have also more technical questions, please feel free to ask. I'm also interested in the size. You just mentioned in the presentation that jacquard is also a great technique because you can make really big pieces of work, pieces of whatever it is. Yeah. So is this also something what made you choose jacquard technique?
Yeah, I also love like doing big things. Like my jacquards, they're like laying over there, and they're like 2.5 meters long, every one of them. So they're quite huge.
Yeah. So this brings me again to the question of how textiles relate to the space. And if I look at this image here, this projection, I see there's a kind of defined way how you put these three jacquards together. Are you thinking of an installation with these jacquards?
Yes, definitely. I haven't yet like decided how will I set them up. Sure, but I think it's also about the space. But yes, definitely, like I want to see how it goes.
Have you ever thought of also using the floor?
Yeah, I've thought of it. Let's put it that way. I haven't done it, but I've thought of it.
So, but what happens if Yosu is laying on the floor? So.
I wouldn't maybe put them on the floor, except because like I don't want also like Yeah, it's a complicated question. I have to be careful what I say, because I think maybe like if I just put them in the floor, like people think, oh, carpet, or I don't know. Maybe it's really, I think it's maybe a little old-fashioned way of me thinking, but I think it would be like on this some sort of elevation,
yeah.
Something. I think it would make it different. But we had a discussion with this, like for example with Victoria, like some that I should like really present them like maybe a different way than on a wall. And I've been thinking of it, but I think I haven't yet like decided what I would do.
Okay, I would, as a former art historian, I'm also interested in the context where you're showing your work. So is this traditional arts world where you try to show the pieces, or is it something different in terms of contextual framework you need for your work to show?
I think for me it's fine arts and applied arts. I would go with those, but of course like I'm open to everything, and I try to like search like where I can. But I would say applied arts and fine arts are now like my two main fields.
Okay. So there's a kind of a world opening up, especially weaving. We had just mentioned it before with Victoria. This is so kind of still framed as a feminine technique in a way. Are you interested to break such notions or to critically revise such notions as well?
Yes. Definitely, like I think it's a little old-fashioned to think like that. I think there's like much more genders and everything. Like yeah, definitely. Like I think it's good to be critical.
Yeah. Okay.
Too.
Your work in fact shows this world which is much more diverse. I would say so. So thank you so much in inviting us to your world.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everyone.